Today on the podcast, we're talking about episode 1104, What's My Age Again? Another really good episode. I really enjoyed this episode because there was so much going on. We got updates on a lot of the storylines, and we got introduced to some new storylines. Updates with Drew and Bianca, Jenna and KC. We introduced some new Wesley and Connor plot lines. The big storyline of the night was Anya finally turning 18 and being able to go on a date with Dr. Chris and to start a relationship. Now, anyone who's been watching the promos, you probably already knew that the relationship would not actually happen due to the fact that she is going to maybe be starting a relationship with Owen, which now, who knows if that's even going to be happening. For some reason, I thought that the scene with Anya laying down, crying, and the guy walking in, I thought she was staying the night at Dr. Chris's house. The Teen Nick promos made it seem like that was when she was going over to stay the night, and that was him coming in. I didn't even realize that was Owen till the episode aired, so I was completely off about that. Kind of pointless just to bring Dr. Chris back for, one episode, but at the same time, it is nice to see him back so they can at least have a good storyline to do. It was an interesting plot line. Hopefully, maybe somehow he'll be around again for whatever reason, but I guess the chances of that happening are pretty slim since he said he was leaving in just a couple days. Also, speaking of the Anya storyline, one of the things so far this season, the really only big complaint that I can think of, is the fact that Riley, mainly, and Zane have not been used at all, and they are main cast members. We are already into the 4th episode. I don't know if anyone caught it, but Riley was at Anya's party. I didn't get a chance to, the scene that showed him went by so quick, I didn't get a chance to see if Zane was there with him, but I did see Riley for sure, so at least he was there. Him and Anya could have talked about Dr. Chris, since obviously he knows Dr. Chris. I thought that would have been something that they were going to do in this episode, and I was looking forward to finally being able to see Riley, because I figured this is when they would introduce him to the season, but alas, they did not. And it sucks that he'll be leaving the show soon, and he still hasn't even had any speaking lines yet this season. But he does have some storylines coming up next week, which should be interesting. If you want to know more about that, you can get some spoilers and read the descriptions for the episodes online. The next storyline of the episode was Wesley and Connor, and Wesley trying to get a girlfriend, and Connor staring at Hannah's boobs. I'm not the biggest fan of these two. They remind me of a poor man's Toby and JT. I think Toby and JT were way superior. But that's not to say that, they can't have interesting storylines. Everything with his disease and meeting the girl online. Those were some really good, really good scenes, but I don't know, the geeky guys, the nerdy guys trying to find a girlfriend, I don't know. To me, it's just not the most interesting thing. I really did enjoy when Connor went into Fiona's room and took a pair of her lingerie. Yeah, that should be really interesting to see, what's going on with that. Is he going to start a rumor to try and be cool that he slept with Fiona or something? Hannah and Wesley, honestly, not that interested in them. I don't really mind Wesley as a character, but just trying to get the girl and stuff, I find that kind of, whatever. I did like the reference that him and Anya are good friends when Hannah asked how he got an invite to this grade 12 party. Once again, continuity. We got some brief updates to the Drew and Bianca storyline. Nothing life-changing here. Good moments with Drew's mom, Audra, and him, hugging it out, talking about Bianca and her past and how she's changed. We're going to get a big update on the storyline tomorrow night, as seen in the previews, when Drew is beat up in the snow, despite it being spring. And commenting on that, it does snow in the spring. This year, I am in Michigan, Canada's neighbor, and it was snowing into late April this year, very cold. So, and also the spring break is different throughout the year. Also, spring break takes place in March, April, February, all different times depending on your location. So for it to be snowing and being in during the spring for this season is perfectly okay in my eyes, because it was snowing on my spring break this year, and a lot of other people commented where they live it was also snowing. We had a very cold winter, and we're having a very hot summer right now. And the other storyline tonight was Jenna and Casey, and now we have the setup for Casey to begin dating Marisol, who has been up to a series regular this season. Not very interested in that. It seems Casey, he does want to make a difference, he does want to try, but at the same time, he's a guy, he wants to have fun, he's getting a job so he can get away from the baby, not necessarily Jenna yet. Him and Marisol are gonna get that spark going and possibly start a relationship. So we'll see where that's going. I wish that Casey would just stick with Jenna, but this is Degrassi. Another note I forgot to say in the other two podcasts I've done was that the music, again, for this season is very good. They have some very good songs this season, like they did last year, and they always have. Music completely changes a scene. It can make it 100 times better, 100 times worse. Anytime you add a song to a scene, it drastically changes the tone, and Degrassi knows exactly when to insert music, what songs to put in. The producers, the music supervisors, and all them, they do a fantastic job with the music. A lot of the songs are by smaller indie artists as well, so it's good for Degrassi because it gives, it's cheaper to put their music in, and also it gives exposure to great indie acts who otherwise, may never be able to make it that big, and this is giving them essentially free promotion, and myself and others have all downloaded legally a bunch of the songs already. So head over to tnick.com or muchmusic.com. They got the music list for the episodes if you're curious about any of the songs. Alright, that about wraps it up for podcast number 3. Hope you all are enjoying the podcast, and you'll check back in tomorrow for podcast number 4. Thanks for listening. Degrassi Extra. Shh. So Dr. Chris is going to Kenya. We now have another Degrassi star heading off to Kenya, which is lovely. So maybe they'll bring back Darcy now. Speaking of Darcy, I was still hoping that some way they would find a way to get Shanae to do a cameo from the divorce. By the time we get into week 2 and week 3 of season 11, 90210 was on hiatus, and I thought it really would have been cool if they could have somehow got Shanae to do a cameo. Hopefully season 11 has some sort of cool cameo.